July 12, 1943. Hundreds of tanks charge, colliding at point-blank range. Crews bail from burning hulks only to be gunned down by machine gun fire. This is the Battle of Kursk, where thousands will die as the ground shakes and the largest tank battle in human history reaches its climax. But let's change one thing. Rolling through the smoke and chaos on the German southern flank is something no one understands. A 59-ton steel Predator with angles that don't belong in 1943, a gun barrel longer than any tank cannon ever built, and sensors that can see through darkness itself. It's a Rheinmetall Kf-51 Panther, Germany's most advanced supertank from 2025, dropped into a battle it was never meant to fight. So what happens when the most advanced main battle tank on Earth is unleashed during one of history's most brutal armored engagements? Can it single-handedly turn the tide for Germany? Or is it just one tank against 2 million Soviet soldiers and 7,000 T-34s? First, let's look at exactly what just materialized on the Eastern Front. The Kf-51 Panther represents everything German engineers have learned about tank warfare over 80 years. It weighs 59 tons and sits lower than its World War II counterpart with sloped composite armor that makes the original Panther's steel plates look like aluminum foil. A 1,500 horsepower diesel engine pushes it to 43 miles per hour on roads, faster than most sports cars of 1943. Its main weapon is a 130mm smoothbore cannon, the biggest gun ever mounted on a NATO tank. This beast fires armor-piercing rounds at velocities that would make a Tiger crew weep. Where a 1943 tank might hit targets at a kilometer, the Kf-51 can kill at 4 kilometers with computer-guided precision. An autoloader feeds shells into the breach, letting a 3-man crew pump out rounds faster than any human loader could manage. But the real advantage is its vision. Thermal imaging lets the crew see through smoke, dust, and total darkness. A 360-degree camera system means they can fight with perfect awareness of their surroundings. In an era where tank commanders stand exposed in their hatches just to see the battlefield, this is like fighting blind men. And if something does get close enough to shoot back, the Panther carries an active protection system that can detect and intercept incoming projectiles. It can pop smoke screens automatically when targeted. The armor itself combines steel composites and reactive elements designed to defeat weapons that won't exist for decades. Now, let's look at what's trying to kill it. The Soviet Fifth Guard's tank army is charging across these fields with nearly 1,000 armored vehicles. T-34 medium tanks from the backbone, each mounting a 76mm gun that can penetrate about 70mm of armor at 500 meters. Behind them roll KV-1 heavy tanks with thicker armor and bigger guns. Su-152 assault guns lumber forward, their massive 152mm howitzers designed to crack open German bunkers. And they're not alone. The Soviets at Kursk combined tanks with waves of infantry, anti-tank guns positioned in depth, and the dreaded Tu-2 Stormovik attack planes circling overhead like steel vultures. The Red Army has spent months preparing for this battle. They've dug 8 defensive lines, have buried 900,000 mines, and they've positioned thousands of artillery pieces to turn any breakthrough into a killing ground. The Soviets also have something the Germans lack: numbers they can afford to lose. For every tank the Kf-51 destroys, 10 more wait in reserve. The factories behind the Urals are churning out T-34s faster than Germany can build anything. Dawn breaks over Prokhorovka. Soviet tank columns begin their charge across the open steppe, expecting to meet the battered remnants of the SS Panzer divisions. Instead, the lead T-34 commander spots something strange through his periscope: a single tank, unlike anything in any recognition manual, sitting hull down on a ridge 2 kilometers away. He never finishes his report. A 130mm round crosses the distance in less than a second and turns his tank into a fireball. The Soviet column doesn't even know where the shot came from. Their crews are trained to engage at ranges under a kilometer. The Kf-51 is killing them from distances they can't see clearly. A second T-34 explodes, then a third. The autoloader cycles smoothly as the Panther's gunner works through targets with mechanical efficiency. Soviet commanders respond the way they've been trained. They order the charge to continue, close the distance, overwhelm the enemy with numbers. Hundreds of tanks surge forward, engines roaring, treads chewing through the summer grass. The Kf-51 crew watches the wave approach through thermal imaging that renders every enemy vehicle as a bright white signature against the cool earth. They have time to engage dozens of targets before the Soviets get within effective range. The main gun barks again and again. T-34s brew up in chains across the steppe. But 30 rounds go fast when you're fighting an army. The Panther's commander makes the call to displace. The tank reverses off the ridge and accelerates to speeds that would leave any pursuing Soviet vehicle in the dust. They relocate to a new position, flank the Soviet advance, and resume firing from an unexpected angle. This is where modern doctrine shines. Shoot and scoot. Never stay in one position long enough to be targeted. Use superior mobility and sensors to dictate the terms of engagement. Soviet losses mount horrifically. Commanders radio desperate reports of an enemy that strikes from nowhere and vanishes before they can respond. Some crews refuse to advance. Others abandon their vehicles and flee on foot. The psychological effect of facing an invincible enemy begins to fracture unit cohesion. But the Soviets adapt. They always adapt. Artillery observers finally triangulate the Panther's general position. Batteries of 152mm howitzers begin saturating the area with high explosive shells. The KF-51's armor can shrug off nearby blasts, but direct hits threaten to damage external systems, blind cameras, or throw tracks. The crew has to keep moving, burning precious fuel. Meanwhile, Soviet commanders realize something crucial. The Demon tank is alone. There's no supporting infantry, no supply line, no reinforcements. If they can pin it down, they can overwhelm it. They send T-34s in sacrificial waves, not to kill the Panther, but to fix its position and force it to burn ammunition. Infantry teams with anti-tank grenades infiltrate through draws and gullies. Tu-2 Sturmoviks make strafing runs, dropping anti-tank bomblets across the Panther's escape routes. The KF-51's active protection system engages incoming rockets, but it was designed for guided missiles, not swarms of unguided projectiles from every direction. The smoke dispensers fire, the machine guns chatter, the crew fights with desperate skill. Then the main gun goes silent, 30 rounds expended. The most powerful tank cannon in history is reduced to a multi-million-dollar steel tube. The Panther still has its coaxial machine gun. It still has speed and armor, but it can no longer kill tanks, and the Soviets know it. They close in from every direction. T-34s finally reach ranges where their 76mm guns just might, penetrate the Panther's side armor. The first Soviet shell to connect bounces off harmlessly. The second finds a track link. The third follows immediately after. The KF-51 lurches to a stop, one tread hanging loose. Soviet infantry swarm the concealment. The remote weapon station cuts down dozens, but they keep coming. A satchel charge lands on the engine deck. The explosion breaches the rear armor and sets the fuel alight. The crew has seconds to bail out. Whether they survive what comes next depends on the mercy of Soviet soldiers who just watched this single tank slaughter hundreds of their comrades. In the end, the KF-51 Panther destroys an estimated 47 Soviet tanks and armored vehicles before its ammunition runs dry. It survives for approximately 6 hours of continuous combat, 6 hours that Soviet engineers will spend years trying to understand from the wreckage. But could a single supertank from the modern day change the outcome? Not a chance. The Battle of Kursk still ends in Soviet victory, and the Red Army begins its long march to Berlin. One supertank, no matter how advanced, cannot substitute for divisions, supply lines, and strategic depth. The Panther's crew came seeking revenge, but they only found the lesson every army eventually learns. Wars aren't won by weapons alone. They're won by the soldiers who keep fighting after those weapons run out of ammo. Or what do you think would happen? And if you're curious what would happen if a modern bomber fought at Pearl Harbor, check out the video on screen now. Thanks for watching.